currently in Auvers-sur-Oise, which is where Vincent Van Gogh lived out his last days. This is where he painted his last paintings. And he's buried right over there with his brother. And the story goes that one day he was painting in these fields and he shot himself in the stomach and died shortly thereafter. That being said, the gun was never found. There was no gunpowder on his shirt, which would have been the case had he shot himself at such close range. And he walked all the way back to his hotel, mortally wounded, and asked to be operated on to be saved. Now, that's not typical behavior from somebody who's trying to kill themselves. First of all, you're not going to shoot yourself in the stomach. You may say, well, he's crazy. He was an alcoholic who cut his ear off. But at that time, he was very productive and asked, the day before, very shortly before this all happened, he asked his brother for more painting supplies. He already felt guilty that he was pumping all these funds from his brother, so why would he have done that? That doesn't make sense either. But when he got all the way back to the hotel, no doctor was available, and it was very vague as to what happened. He just said he was shot. But two historians inspired a book, and they had a different opinion as to what happened. What more likely happened was that Van Gogh developed a relationship, or he knew two brothers who lived in Auvers-sur-Oise, two young men. And one brother was enamored by Van Gogh. He was inspired by him and looked up to him, and the other brother didn't appreciate that, and he felt threatened by him and did not like the influence he was having on his brother. At this time, Van Gogh was seen as this, loser freak who was painting landscapes and was just misunderstood by everybody around him. And he was terribly treated by workers walking by. People threw apples at him, spit on him. He was not liked. And he was especially disliked by this one brother who felt threatened by his influence on his brother. So one day he was painting one of these fields and threatened Van Gogh with a gun. Things got out of hand, or maybe he accidentally pulled the trigger and shot him in the stomach. And he ran away with the evidence, with the gun. And Van Gogh walked all the way back. And Van Gogh, being the noble soul that he is, probably thought, why destroy these kids' lives when I'm a burden on my brother? This is my fate. I'm going to smoke my pipe in my deathbed and let what happens happen. And I think that's a very noble thing to do. He didn't take it personally. But if you go to any one of these museums on Van Gogh, they'll tell you the official story is that he shot himself. He was mentally unstable. Doesn't make sense. And it makes you wonder what other official stories that are in history books are just published out of convenience or laziness. So it's important to do your own research, read a lot of literature, try to find accounts of people who actually lived at the time, letters or correspondence. And it'll be easier to connect the real dots as to what happened. So I felt obligated to make this video. It's not a super mainstream book that I read. I don't even think it's translated in English, but it is highly unlikely that Vincent Van Gogh killed himself.